It was a bright morning in Lagos, and the streets buzzed with life. Amara, a cheerful 1-year-old with big brown eyes and chubby cheeks, played happily in the living room while her mother, Ngozi, prepared breakfast. Amara loved her red locket. It was a gift from her late father, Uche. She never took it off, and her tiny fingers often fiddled with it while she giggled. Chike, Ngozi's younger brother, had recently moved in with them. Ngozi thought Chike could help her around the house while she walked. Chike seemed kind, always smiling and offering to take care of Amara. That morning, he offered to take Amara to the park. "Ngozi, you work too hard. Let me give you a break. I'll take Amara out for fresh air," he said, smiling. Ngozi hesitated. She loved her daughter and rarely let her out of sight. But Chike had been helpful lately, and she didn't want to seem ungrateful. "All right, but don't go far. Be back in an hour," she said, giving Chike a trusting smile. Amara giggled as Chike picked her up and carried her out of the house. Ngozi watched them leave, her heart feeling both light and heavy. Hours passed, and Chike didn't return. Ngozi called his phone, but it went unanswered. Panic set in. She ran outside, asking neighbors if they had seen Chike and Amara. No one had. Ngozi called the police. She described her brother and her baby, but they said she needed to wait 24 hours before they could act. That night, Ngozi couldn't sleep. Her mind raced with questions. Where could they be? Was Amara safe? Why wasn't Chike answering his phone? The next morning, Ngozi found a small piece of red thread near the front door. It looked like it had been torn from Amara's locket. Her heart sank. Something was wrong. She decided to search for answers herself. Starting with Chike's belongings, she found a notebook tucked under his mattress. Flipping through it, she saw strange notes about deaths, desperation, and an address scrawled on the last page. Ngozi wasted no time. She went to the address written in Chike's notebook. It led her to a shabby house on the edge of the city. Knocking on the door, a woman opened it, her face wary. "I'm looking for my brother, Chike, and my daughter, Amara," Ngozi said. The woman hesitated, then said, "I don't know who you're talking about," before slamming the door. Ngozi's instincts told her the woman was lying. She walked around the house and peeked through a window. Her breath caught when she saw Amara's red locket on a dusty table inside. Before Ngozi could act, a man appeared behind her. "What are you doing here?" he growled. It was Chike. But his face wasn't kind anymore. It was cold, almost unrecognizable. Ngozi demanded answers, her voice trembling. Chike tried to calm her down, saying he was in trouble and needed money. "Amara is fine. She's with people who will take care of her," he said, but his words did nothing to ease Ngozi's fear. "You sold her, didn't you?" Ngozi screamed. Chike flinched but didn't deny it. Her heart shattered into a million pieces. She had trusted him, her own brother. Ngozi refused to leave without her daughter. She pushed past Chike and ran into the house, screaming Amara's name. She heard a faint cry from a room upstairs. Following the sound, she found Amara locked in a small room, her cheek stained with tears. Ngozi scooped her daughter into her arms, holding her tightly. But before she could leave, Chike and the woman blocked the doorway. "You're not leaving with her," the woman said, her voice icy. Ngozi's hands trembled, but her love for Amara gave her strength. "Over my dead body," she said, glaring at them. The woman lunged at Ngozi, but Ngozi fought back. In the struggle, Ngozi managed to knock over a table, causing a loud crash. The noise drew the attention of neighbors, who gathered outside the house. Hearing the commotion, the woman and Chike panicked. They tried to flee, but the crowd stopped them. Someone called the police, and within minutes, officers arrived and arrested Chike and the woman. Ngozi held Amara close as they returned home. Her heart ached from the betrayal, but she was grateful to have her daughter back. The red locket was gone, but Amara's smile was all the treasure she needed. From that day on, Ngozi vowed to never let anyone come between her and her child again. The memory of what happened never left Ngozi, but it taught her the strength of a mother's love. And while Amara may never remember the danger she faced, her mother's embrace would always keep her safe. Ngozi's life returned to a semblance of normal after the terrifying incident, but deep down, she struggled to move on. She couldn't sleep at night, replaying the betrayal of her own brother over and over in her mind. Chike's smiling face haunted her dreams, morphing into the cold, unfeeling expression he wore when she confronted him. Amara, however, seemed resilient. She giggled and clapped her hands as if nothing had ever happened, her innocent joy giving Ngozi the strength to keep going. Every time Amara laughed, Ngozi was reminded of how precious her daughter was, and how close she had come to losing her. A few weeks later, Ngozi was in the kitchen preparing dinner when there was a knock at the door. Her heart skipped a beat. Ever since that day, she had grown wary of strangers. Wiping her hands on a towel, she approached the door cautiously and peered through the peephole. It was a man in a police uniform. Ngozi opened the door, her chest tightening with unease. "Good evening, ma'am," the officer said, tipping his hat slightly. "We've been investigating the case involving your brother and your daughter, Amara. I need to speak with you." Ngozi nodded and let him in. Sitting across from the officer in the living room, she listened as he explained that Chike and his accomplice were part of a larger ring trafficking children to overseas buyers. "Your daughter was a target because of her age and innocence," the officer said gravely. "We've managed to shut down their immediate operations, but we believe there are still others involved." Ngozi's stomach churned. "Are you saying there are more people out there who might come after my daughter?" she asked, her voice trembling. "We don't know for sure," the officer replied. "But we recommend staying vigilant. We'll do everything we can to protect you and your child." After the officer left, Ngozi couldn't shake the feeling of unease. She began noticing small things: a man standing too long on the corner near her house, a car parked outside for hours without anyone getting out. She told herself she was being paranoid, but the fear wouldn't leave her. One evening, as Ngozi was putting Amara to bed, she noticed something strange. Amara's favorite stuffed bear, which she always kept in her crib, was missing. Ngozi searched the entire house but couldn't find it. Her heart raced. Had someone been inside her home? Or had she simply misplaced it in her distracted state? She tried to convince herself it was nothing, but she started locking all the windows and double-checking the doors every night. A week later, Ngozi was at the market buying vegetables when she felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned around sharply, ready to defend herself, but it was just her neighbor, Ao, an elderly woman who often helped babysit Amara. "You look tired, Ngozi," Ao said kindly. "Are you all right?" Ngozi forced a smile. "I'm fine, Mama Ao. Just a bit busy, that's all." But Mama Ao's sharp eyes studied her face. "If something's troubling you, don't keep it to yourself," she said. "We're all here for you." Ngozi hesitated, then said, "I'm just worried about Amara. I feel like someone's watching us." Mama Ao frowned. "You trust your instincts, my dear. If something feels wrong, it probably is." That evening, after putting Amara to bed, Ngozi sat at the kitchen table, staring at the locket she had recovered from Chike's accomplice. It was bent and scratched, but it was still a symbol of her daughter's safety. She clenched it in her fist and made a decision: she would fight for Amara, no matter what. The next morning, Ngozi went to the police station. "I want to know everything about this trafficking ring," she said. "I need to protect my daughter." The officer she spoke to was reluctant at first, but eventually, he agreed to share what he could. We suspect there are still buyers in the city looking for children, he said. We've been monitoring certain areas, but these people are smart. They move in silence. Ngozi's heart pounded as she absorbed the information. What can I do to help? She asked. The officer shook his head. You've been through enough, ma'am. Leave this to us. But Ngozi wasn't satisfied. She began researching on her own, visiting libraries and scouring the internet for clues about how trafficking operations worked. She learned about how children were often targeted through their families and how traffickers used fear to keep parents silent. One night, as she sat in the living room poring over her notes, she heard a noise outside the window. Her heart stopped. She turned off the lamp and crept to the window, peeking through the curtain. A shadowy figure stood by the front gate, looking toward the house. Ngozi's hands shook as she grabbed her phone and dialed the police. Someone's outside my house, she whispered. The dispatcher assured her that officers were on their way, but Ngozi didn't feel safe. She grabbed a heavy vase and positioned herself near Amara's room, ready to protect her daughter with her life. Minutes felt like hours as she waited. The shadowy figure didn't move. When the police arrived, the figure vanished into the darkness. The officers searched the area but found nothing. We'll increase patrols in this area, one officer said. Stay alert and call us if you see anything suspicious again. Ngozi knew she couldn't live in fear forever. She decided to take drastic measures to protect Amara. She installed security cameras, reinforced the doors and windows, and even started taking self-defense classes. Through it all, she kept her head high and her love for Amara strong. But she couldn't shake the feeling that the battle wasn't over. Somewhere out there, danger still lurked. And Ngozi was ready to face it, no matter what. As the days turned into weeks, Ngozi's heightened awareness became her armor. Every knock at the door, every stranger in the neighborhood, every unfamiliar car passing by made her heart race. But she refused to let fear control her. Instead, she poured her energy into protecting Amara and rebuilding a sense of normalcy. One evening, as the sun dipped low in the sky, Ngozi decided to take Amara for a stroll to the park. The air was warm, and the streets were filled with the chatter of children and neighbors. For the first time in weeks, Ngozi allowed herself to relax, holding Amara's tiny hand as they walked. At the park, Amara played on the swings while Ngozi sat on a bench, keeping her eyes trained on her daughter. A man sitting a few benches away caught her attention. He wasn't playing with a child or talking to anyone, he just sat there, watching. Ngozi's heart quickened. Was she overreacting, or was this another sign of danger? She decided not to take any chances. Standing up, she called Amara to her side and walked away, keeping an eye on the man. To her relief, he didn't follow them. That night, as Ngozi tucked Amara into bed, her daughter held her hands up and said, "Mama, don't be sad." Ngozi's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not sad, my love. I'm just making sure you're safe." Amara patted her cheek. "Safe with Mama." Those simple words gave Ngozi the strength she needed. She kissed Amara's forehead and whispered, "Always." The following morning, as Ngozi prepared breakfast, her phone buzzed with a call from the police. "Ma'am, we've arrested a suspect who may be linked to your brother's case," the officer said. "We'd like you to come to the station to identify him." Ngozi's hands trembled as she ended the call. Could this be the breakthrough she'd been praying for? When she arrived at the station, she was led to a small room with a one-way glass window. Behind the glass stood a man with a scar running down his cheek. Her heart skipped a beat. She had seen him before, the man watching her at the park. "Do you recognize him?" the officer asked. Ngozi nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "He was at the park yesterday. He was watching me and my daughter." The officer exchanged a glance with his colleague. "We believe he's part of the trafficking ring." We are interrogating him to learn more. Ngozi returned home that day with mixed emotions. Relief that the man had been caught, but fear that others might still be out there. She knew she couldn't let her guard down. That night, as she reviewed the footage from her newly installed security cameras, she noticed something strange. A man had been lurking near her house earlier that evening, just out of range of the cameras. She rewound the footage and froze the frame. Though the man's face was partially obscured, she could see enough to recognize him. It was Chike. Ngozi's heart raced. Chike was supposed to be in prison. How had he escaped? And why was he near her house? Without hesitation, she called the police. They assured her they would investigate, but Ngozi couldn't wait. She locked every door and window, then sat by Amara's crib with a kitchen knife in her hand. She wouldn't let anyone take her daughter again. Hours passed, and the house was eerily silent. Then, just past midnight, she heard the faint sound of footsteps outside. Her grip on the knife tightened as she crept to the window and peeked outside. Chike stood by the gate, his face hidden in shadows. Ngozi's rage boiled over. She flung the door open and shouted, "What do you want, Chike? Haven't you done enough?" Chike stepped forward, his hands raised as if in surrender. "Ngozi, please. I didn't come to hurt you or Amara. I need your help." Ngozi's mind spun. How could he have the audacity to ask for help after everything he'd done? She wanted to slam the door in his face, but something in his voice stopped her. "Help? After you tried to sell my daughter? After you betrayed me," she spat, her voice trembling with anger. Chike dropped to his knees. "I made a mistake, Ngozi. A terrible mistake. But I'm in danger now. The people I worked for, they're after me. If they find me, they'll kill me." Ngozi glared at him, her heart torn between hatred and pity. "You brought this on yourself," she said coldly. Chike looked up at her, desperation in his eyes. "Please, just let me stay here for one night. I have nowhere else to go." Ngozi hesitated. Letting him in could put her and Amara in danger, but sending him away might mean his death. After a long pause, she said, "You can stay for one night. But if you try anything, I won't hesitate to call the police." Chike nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you, Ngozi. I swear I won't cause any trouble." But as she locked the door behind him, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just made a grave mistake. Ngozi kept a close eye on Chike as he sat on the floor of her living room, his hands clasped tightly together. She hadn't offered him anything, not food, not water, and certainly not comfort. The memories of what he had done to her daughter were too fresh, too raw. He was lucky she hadn't already called the police. Amara was sound asleep in her room, oblivious to the storm brewing outside her safe little world. Ngozi stood near the hallway, one hand on her phone and the other clutching the knife she had hidden in her pocket. "Talk," she said coldly, breaking the tense silence. "Why are they after you?" Chike looked up, his face pale. "The people I worked for, they think I betrayed them. When I was arrested, I kept quiet about their operations, but they are paranoid. They think I've shared information with the police. They want me dead." Ngozi's lips curled into a bitter smile. "So now you know what it feels like to be afraid for your life. You didn't think of that when you put Amara in danger." "I know I deserve this," Chike said, his voice trembling. "But I didn't come here to beg for your forgiveness. I came because I can help you. I know who they are, where they operate, how they find their targets. If you help me, I'll tell you everything." Ngozi's eyes narrowed. "Why should I believe anything you say? You've already proven you can't be trusted." Chike leaned forward, his voice desperate. "Because I have no other choice. They'll kill me whether I talk or not. But if I can take them down, maybe I can do one good thing before it's too late. Ngozi stayed awake the entire night, her mind racing. Could she trust Chike? His betrayal had cut deep, but his knowledge of the trafficking ring could save countless children. By morning, she made her decision. She called the police and told them everything Chike had said. The officers arrived quickly, arresting Chike and taking him into custody. As they led him away, Chike turned to Ngozi. "Thank you," he said softly, "for giving me a chance to make things right." Ngozi didn't respond. She didn't know if she could ever forgive him, but she hoped his information would lead to justice. Over the next few weeks, Ngozi worked closely with the police, providing any assistance she could. Chike's information proved invaluable. Several members of the trafficking ring were arrested, and their operations were dismantled. It was a bittersweet victory, justice for Amara and other children, but a painful reminder of the brother she had lost to greed and corruption. One evening, as Ngozi played with Amara in their living room, there was a knock at the door. Her heart skipped a beat, but when she opened it, she found Mama Eo standing there, holding a basket of fruit. "I heard the news," Mama Eo said with a warm smile. "You're a brave woman, Ngozi. You've protected your daughter and helped so many others." Ngozi invited her in, feeling a wave of gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mama Eo. Your advice gave me the strength to keep going." As Amara toddled over to them, giggling, Ngozi felt a deep sense of peace. The nightmare was finally over, and she could focus on giving her daughter a safe, happy life. Months later, Ngozi received a letter from Chike. He had been sentenced to prison but had written to apologize once more for his actions. In the letter, he expressed his remorse and gratitude, saying that helping to dismantle the trafficking ring had given him a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. Ngozi folded the letter and put it away. She wasn't sure if she would ever forgive him, but she hoped he would find a way to redeem himself. Life gradually returned to normal. Ngozi continued to take precautions, but the overwhelming fear that had once gripped her began to fade. She found joy in the little things, Amara's laughter, the kindness of neighbors, and the strength she had discovered within herself. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Ngozi stood on the balcony with Amara in her arms. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink, a reminder that even after the darkest storms, light could break through. "Look, Mama," Amara said, pointing to the horizon. "So pretty." Ngozi smiled, her heart full. "Yes, my love. It is." And for the first time in what felt like forever, she believed it.